Alan Chu, founder of Boba Network. We are an optimistic roll-up Ethereum Layer 2 scaling platform. We're currently the number 2 Layer 2 solution in terms of total value locked. Fastest growing, tons of action happening on Boba Network. Check us out, gateway.boba.network.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Mark Anstead. I'm one of the founders of Numio. We are a mobile wallet, a non-custodial mobile wallet on Ethereum. We were the first mobile wallet to natively support ZK rollups, which is a different kind of scaling solution from an optimistic rollup. And we were the first one on ZK Sync. So take the floor.
So my name is Sam Harrison. And is it better if I hold it here and talk like this or like this? The first one, like this? Okay, all the way in. Perfect. Sam Harrison, I'm the head of ecosystem growth for Harmony. Harmony is a layer 1 blockchain that's totally EVM compatible. Thousands of transactions per second, 2-second finality, almost no transaction fees, and the best swag in the building. So swing by our booth to get some. So we normally would have a moderator that would come out and ask us very important questions and make us look very, very smart. But instead, we decided to try and do that ourselves. So this is going to work out well. So let me actually just throw this out. We're supposed to be talking about scaling DeFi. What does that mean?
You know what? There are so many different aspects to scaling. And we can go deep into the technology, how we scale Ethereum. But one thing I want to touch on that not enough people talk about, I think, is how do we scale this whole ecosystem to have 100x more users, to have 100x more developers building DeFi and have users who are transacting and playing with DeFi just as easily as they work with Robinhood, right? That's the ultimate scaling challenge. So scaling the infrastructure is part of the solution, but not the entire solution. I think projects like Harmony and Numio are important pieces of making this happen, because unless we have super easy to use on-ramps and really scalable infrastructure and lots of interesting DeFi dApps on these infrastructure, we'll never get to achieve the vision of fulfilling this most inclusive financial system that we've ever created.
Yeah, and you actually bring up a really good point, and I'd like to sort of touch on it. And it's actually like this on-ramp into DeFi, especially with these scaling solutions. And I see that being one of the biggest difficulties to bring new users into these ecosystems. Because right now, I would say the majority of people, probably when they got involved with DeFi, they probably started on Ethereum. That was mainly where DeFi was essentially created. And in order to move into a lot of these scaling solutions, you have to pay gas fees. It's extremely expensive. At some points, you could use a bridging contract, and it will cost you $40, $50, maybe $100 in network fees, and that's pretty brutal. And so one of the things that we're really starting to see with different types of scaling solutions is having both fiat gateways, and what I mean by a fiat gateway is the ability to go from fiat currencies, meaning US dollars, British pounds, euros, a variety of different types of fiat currencies, directly into these native cryptocurrencies on these scaling solutions. So you don't actually have to interact with Ethereum mainnet. Or alternatively, we're starting to see a lot of centralized exchanges where I would say is probably one of the best starting places for a lot of people to invest into crypto and is the gateway to interact with DeFi, are starting to build native bridges into these solutions. And so like, I know with Boba Network and Harmony, I'm not dealing with that specifically. I would love to hear like your guys' thoughts and like your journey into, I don't know if you have native centralized exchange support, or what like the journey to that next step is for that.
That's actually a really interesting question. So what is the role that centralized exchanges play for most of us? To be able to start decentralized finance, we have to start by getting on chain. And most people start by getting on chain by going through a centralized exchange, right? And so, you know, it is a badge of honor, or it is a threshold or table stakes to be listed on Binance or to be listed on Coinbase or to be listed on Kraken or a centralized exchange that has done the regulatory work to get on board. So that is just table stakes. You got to have that. But there's another additional thing here. Raise your hand if you can tell me what your seed phrase is right now off the top of your head. Oh, there you go. We got one. So what is it? Go ahead and tell me. I don't know. Yeah, you're not supposed to do that. Don't ever tell anybody your seed phrase. So the point that I'm trying to make here is the fact that the underlying technology that we're using with all of these new people who are coming on is very difficult to use. So to your point about having the right infrastructure to scale, having the right experience to be able to come on board, those are both vital. I do want to actually ask both of you guys this question, because we use this phrase all the time, scaling. But it's a buzzword. Like, what does it actually mean? Does this mean that we're talking about 1 to 2 to 3? Or is it 1 to 10 to 100 to 1,000? And why is that a challenge?
Well, the way we look at it at Boba is when we go from 1 to 2 to 3, that's sort of linear scaling. That's not terribly interesting, and in most cases, the existing architectures have already been designed to deal with that kind of linear scaling, linear growth. What requires ingenuity and really breakthrough innovation is when we start talking about order of magnitude increase in scale, going from 1 to 10, 10 to 100. And so I studied electrical engineering and computer science and jumped into distributed systems world right after college. So this is my career-long fascination with scaling systems. And one of the things I picked up is one, it's really hard, and two, there's no one design that could satisfy all the design goals. You're always making some sort of trade-off. So the best way to scale is actually to figure out how to design your system so that each dimension can be scaled independently of each other. If you can scale compute independently of your data layer, that whole system together is much more scalable than trying to create one massive architecture and platform and try to scale in all dimensions simultaneously. And fortunately, that's the direction that Ethereum is moving into, using rollups to scale compute and using data sharding, ETH2 itself, to scale the data layer. So that we're excited about this direction, and that's definitely the right way to go.
Yeah, and I want to actually add on to that. One of the projects that I've been doing a lot of research into and reading a lot about is a project called Starknet. They are building out 2 solutions right now. They actually just launched onto mainnet, their alpha onto mainnet yesterday, which is called Starknet. And that allows you to have fully composable ZK rollups, and it also allows you to use a solution which is known as Validium. ZK rollups are storing data on-chain. Validium is storing data off-chain. And when you combine both of those together, it is known as volition. And what's really cool about what they're building is they're really focused around computation. They're just essentially focusing on letting Ethereum worrying about being the data availability layer. So all data is essentially settled onto Ethereum, while they're allowing for computation to be done on what's known as layer 2. And what they are doing, and they actually invented something which is called a ZK Stark. Big buzzword, but it's really incredible what that allows you to do, because as transactions and throughput scales using this technology, it becomes exponentially cheaper for all computation to occur, which is really, really cool. And so that allows for more and more people to exponentially grow and use these kinds of solutions to scale to the next million, potentially 100 million, potentially billions of people using this type of software. And I'm not saying it's going to be that one specifically. There's a variety of solutions out there. It's going to be a multi-chain, multi-layered world. There's going to be multiple blockchains. There's going to be multiple layer 2s. And it's really interesting to see a lot of the different approaches and different types of ways that people are looking to onboard users and allow for people to use these different types of technologies.
So it sounds like we have a pretty good handle on what we need to do to scale blockchain. right? We understand how to put these pieces together. We may not have built it yet, but we have a good idea of the path. But we're supposed to be talking about scaling DeFi, right? So what does that mean when we're talking about trying to scale decentralized finance? Are we trying to make sure that there are more products in the market? Are we trying to make sure that these products have a greater user base and applicability to more and more people? Are we trying to make sure that when it comes to scaling, that these products can all work together, right? And so that, you know, if there's a slowdown over on Curve, it's not affecting, you know, the work on Uniswap or you know, for example, you know, Chainlink. If Chainlink for some reason would go down, how many different projects would be in trouble because of that? So what would you say from that context, top challenges for DeFi specifically to handle massive transaction loads?
I mean, I think it comes down to the underlying infrastructure that it's using, because when it comes to DeFi, like if we're talking about scaling, literally scaling DeFi, it comes down to how it's going to be able to process that throughput, process all of that data. Because when we're dealing with DeFi, whether it's DeFi or NFTs, it's literally just data that is being stored on a blockchain. And how we're able to make that more scalable and potentially cheaper and more faster and more efficient. And it really comes down to combining all of these different types of solutions and figuring out which one is the best case scenario for all of that. And I know you probably want to jump in here.
No, those are all great points. And I also wanted to bring up one of the barriers to scaling DeFi and involving more mainstream users into DeFi is the fact that there are rug pulls, right? Rug pulls that happen all the time. What are rug pulls, right? So basically these are nefarious actors that deploy DeFi protocols, attract liquidity, basically assets, money to their protocol, and then suddenly they take all of their money away, right? And you can never find them again. And this happens all over the place, time and again, right? And so that's a real deterrent to mainstream users, because who wants to take on that risk? So, and so at Boba, I mean, there's no perfect solution. At Boba, what we try to do is we actually spend time behind the scenes to get to know the developers who are building on Boba, right? We get on video chats with them, learn about their real identities. Publicly, they can remain anonymous, but we try to get to know them. And the fact that they know that we know their real identities itself acts as a deterrent, also proves that the fact that they're willing to reveal their real identities to us, to our team, means that they're much less likely to pull off to do a rug pull on the end users. So we try to do that. And we're also starting to see teams out there who would create kind of badges of certification almost to certify certain projects as, hey, we've basically done the work that we, the Boba team, has done, but for the wider ecosystem, we've checked them out, they're legitimate, so that you feel safer parking your assets in their farming on these protocols. So these are all steps in the right direction, but I think as an industry, we've got to get that under handle.
Can I play devil's advocate really quick?
Yeah.
Sounds centralized. The idea of having this organization, Boba, vet all of these various different projects, it sounds more like a permissioned system and less like an open chain.
So just to be clear, we don't have a whitelisting process. Anyone can launch on Boba, right? So this is more of a social mechanism in getting to know who's building on Boba and sending social signals to the user community. There are those who are feeling more adventurous. They can ape into anything, and they don't require us to whitelist them.
So is that just an additional level of trust for people that are essentially like deploying a smart contract onto Boba? So anybody can go and deploy a smart contract onto Boba, but having that vetting process is just like an additional level of verification and trust with a smart contract. Is that correct?
That's right. That's how I would put it. And this is our response to the reality that the world is a rough place, and you know, the different actors, and some are more trustworthy than others.
So, I think that's actually a really good point. It's something that almost every network has to figure out how to deal with it. Do you completely have your hands off, or do you actually get intimately involved to make sure everything's okay? And so that challenge, I think, is very important. I think there's another challenge when it comes to scaling decentralized finance. And it comes down to, what is it that we're actually doing? I mean, if you think about it, like these instruments, these financial instruments that are being created, that we're being able to use to drastically get our APY, which APY, not APR, like what's happening, not ROI. Like, we're using words and phrases and we're inventing concepts like yield farming that my grandma, rest her soul, she has no idea what I would be talking about. Is one of the steps to scaling DeFi not technological, but cultural and educational? Like, to actually teach everybody here what it means to, and what the results could be when you stake tokens on a proof of stake network, when you provide liquidity into a liquidity pool, when you participate in, a lending protocol, like, and how to do it. Is that one of the biggest hurdles, is because no one really understands what they're doing?
I mean, I think that's part of it. With what you said towards the end, I would think that a lot of the concerns that many people have is the regulatory process with it. Because when we're dealing with a lot of these smart contracts, there can be bugs. And I know one of my friends, I was talking with him yesterday, I was talking about a hack that he was a participant of. And he lost a nice chunk of money. The name of the project was called Cream Finance. They got hacked for like $150 million. Not fun. And there's a lot of skepticism that a lot of people have with a lot of this stuff, because the goal is to make a lot of these solutions completely trustless. And how we can essentially go through this entire environment with an entirely trustless process, it's very difficult. Because it requires a lot of battle testing. We're still really in the early stages of a lot of these solutions. We almost had a $12 billion vulnerability on one of the largest lending protocols that kind of got swooped under the rug. And most people didn't really know about it. And so these are the kinds of things that we need to essentially battle test and grow from, because that will make all of these open source smart contracts more trustless. And I think there's a lot of skepticism and concern for a lot of people, because it's like, well, what happens if my money's gone? I can't go to Sam and say, all right, I need my money back. I'm using an LP on Harmony. I need you to give me my money back. He can't go and do that.
I'm not going to give you your money back. It's my money now. Somebody's got to buy my cheeseburgers. No, and that's an excellent point, actually, is there's no customer service to call. Like, there's no fraud prevention, department at MasterCard to handle whether or not, the transaction goes through. But let me ask this. So we are seeing an explosion of the play-to-earn universe, right? And so we're having a lot of people joining the crypto ecosystem through this mechanism of playing a game. Do you think that that is a path for scaling DeFi, is gamifying this experience?
Well, I think we're already seeing that in mainstream finance, right? How Robinhood has onboarded millions of end users who are new to options trading through gamifying the process. Now, they probably won't like that word, but they essentially have done that by making that process fun and feels like a game. And we're seeing that happen in DeFi as well. It's a proven strategy to educate through entertainment and onboard new users to a fundamentally somewhat complex product, but over time, gradually teach them one concept after another. And so if we take that approach of edutainment approach, plus building a trust building network, right? To weed out the bad actors, to highlight the trustworthy projects with the end users. I think we're well on our way to really scaling the number of mainstream users who could enjoy the benefits of DeFi.
So how, You know, we've talked about this once or twice. How do we vet these people in an open way? Like the rug pulls are such a threat for all the industry and such a threat for adoption. But unless somebody's willing to stand up and take, for lack of a better term, the liability of saying, yes, they're vetted and I trust them.
You can't. I mean, you can't. And then it was interesting. I was talking to a VC the other day, and they're like, yeah, we just made our first fully anonymous investment. They'd never met the founders. They have no clue who they are. All they know is their GitHub profile and the commitments that they're making into that GitHub repository and the smart contracts that they are deploying on chain. They have no clue who they are. Like, could you imagine like 5-10 years ago telling someone, oh yeah, I invested $10-20 million into a person and I don't know who they are. I have no clue. And like that's like mind-blowing. If you can say, all right, here is this check of money, I am hoping that you go and don't just run away with it, because there's nothing preventing them from doing that, theoretically. So, like, you just can't do it.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I spend a lot of time in DAOs, and it's the same sort of problem we're facing in DAOs, which is how can you collaborate with people you don't know? And the answer is, well, it's through your reputation. And so being able to have, it's not necessarily identity, it's about your reputation. The fact that I have my GitHub profile, being able to show the fact that I've done X, Y, and Z. And that if I screw up or if I run away, it's like, you know, if I screwed up on trying to do a proof of work blockchain where I lose all of that power and all that computation and all of that stuff that I've done because I screwed my reputation, right? So that entire profile dies because I did not do well with this piece of investment. Which actually brings up a question regarding the DeFi world. Do you think that we're going to end up having reputational, this is a weird question, reputational exchanges? Like, is that possible even? Like we start being able to say, okay, I'm on Sushi, and I know I love Sushi, or I'm on Uniswap, and Uniswap's amazing, and it's fantastic. And what we're going to do is I'm going to take the Uniswap brand and move it into kind of the next project. Instead of it being to kind of prevent you from having a Viper attack or a vampire attack like what SushiSwap did to Uniswap. Your reputation would protect you from that. I kind of wandered a little bit there in that question. Anybody follow my chain of thought? Anybody? No one.
I don't think I quite follow the question, but I can build on that.
Okay.
Let me build on that. So first of all, I think definitely agree that reputation is an important a piece of the trust building exercise, right? Because if you have built up let's say 3-year worth of profile on Twitter and on GitHub, you're not going to just throw that away for no good reason. But if we purely rely on that, then newcomers in the ecosystem will have a hard time to get started. So we have to find a way to also have newcomers who don't have that kind of long-term profile reputation to lean on to become an active contributor to DAOs as well. And then as for leveraging existing brands, Sushi is already doing that, right? Expanding from one product to a suite of DeFi products, and I think we're going to see more teams do that as well.
So it looks like we're getting waved off. Are you playing us off the stage? Is that what's happening?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna put on a song, then we're all gonna crowd surf off the stage, right? Why don't we do some final remarks?
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Some final remarks. So the thing that I love about the idea of scaling decentralized finance has to do with with personal financial freedom. The idea that you can decide whether or not you're going to take a job because you're interested in it and not because it pays you money, that is a dream that most people in the world will never experience. And that's the power of DeFi. Like the ability to create this passive income stream and free yourself financially from the shackles of the historic system, that's what we're trying to build, and that's why solving scaling DeFi is important. That's my final thought.
And I'm super excited about all the various scaling solutions, whether it's Boba, Harmony, various CK rollups. that they're bringing to the masses, like dramatically lowering the cost of working with DeFi, of enjoying these financial freedoms. So, and we're just getting started. Super excited to see what comes next.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be really exciting. I kind of geek out on this stuff. Like I love learning about how some of these solutions are scaling, especially a lot of the layer 1 chains. I actually didn't know that Harmony includes the ability to shard. So I actually learned something new today. Especially all these other layer 2 solutions that are being developed. Boba Network, Optimism, Arbitrum, ZK Sync, Starkware. Like these are all incredibly innovative teams that are building, in my opinion, some of the biggest hurdles for everybody to be able to use these technologies. And like that's hopefully where like our team kind of comes into play to sort of work with retail around that. And so I'm really, really thrilled to see how the next couple years are going to continue to evolve and where we're at. I mean, it's gonna be pretty cool.
It'll be very cool. All right.
Absolutely.
Do we want to? Where can we get in contact with you and your project?
You can find us on Twitter. Our handle is at GetNumio, GETNUMIO. We're pretty active there. I also make some content on TikTok if you want to see me just being an idiot.
TikTok.
There you go.
We're at Boba Network on Twitter.
Harmony Protocol, Twitter, at Harmony Protocol. Thank you, guys.